All right, we're looking at the square root property today. The square root property is used when you have something like this right here. X squared equals 25. Okay, get it on the screen there. X squared equals 25. You can square root both sides. When I square root here, it cancels the square. And so I have just X. When I square root 25, it's 5. But anytime you square root both sides like this, your answer could be plus or minus. It could be positive or negative. Now, if you go back to the original problem, you can see that if I put 5 in, 5 squared is 25. But if I put negative 5 in, negative 5 squared is 25. So both of them are valid answers. So we got to remember, anytime we square root both sides using the square root property, it could be plus or minus. Okay, now sometimes we've got one that's not a perfect square, like this one, x squared equals 48. When I square root both sides, the square root cancels the square. So I have just x here. Over here I got the square root of 48, which is not a perfect square. But I do know it's plus or minus. Now if I take my 48 and break it down, that's 2 times 24. 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. Okay, and then we're looking for pairs. Well, there's a pair of 2's. That's going to send a 2 out of the radical. There's another pair of 2's. There's another 2 coming out of the radical. But this 3 right here is stuck in the radical because he does not have a partner. So I got 2 times 2, 4 coming out of the radical. And I got that 3 stuck. And there's my answer right there, positive or negative 4 radical 3. Okay. Now, sometimes we have expressions that's in the radical, like x minus 3. That's squared, and it equals 16. X minus 3 squared is 16. Okay, well, I can do the square root property on both sides again. The square root cancels the square. Now this time that leaves me x minus 3. The square root of 16 is 4, but it could be positive or negative 4. So there you go. Now I would add 3 to both sides then, which makes this go away, and x equals 3 plus or minus 4. This positive 3 plus or minus this 4, which means we have 2 answers here. 3 plus 4 is 7. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. There's my 2 answers. Okay, and if I check those in the original problem, here's the original problem again. I'll write down here, x minus 3 was squared, and it equals 16. If I put 7 in, 7 minus 3 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. If I put negative 1 in, negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4, and negative 4 squared is 16. So they both work. Okay, now sometimes doing that square root property, you have an expression like x plus 2 squared equals 12. Suppose you have this. Okay, well you square root both sides. The square root cancels the square. I have x plus 2. Over here, the square root of 12, again, this is one that doesn't simplify. So I have to break down the 12, which is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3, and I got a pair of 2's. So the 2 comes out, the 3 is stuck. But it could be plus or minus. Anytime you square root both sides, it could be plus or minus. All right, well, I don't have x, I got x plus 2, so I have minus 2 on both sides, which makes this cancel off. And x is going to equal, I always put this number first, and I have that. Well, this right here, I can't do anything with it. We would rather just leave them as radicals because that's an exact answer. If I punch this into the calculator, it's going to be rounded, and that's not what I want. So there's my answer right there. That's my 2 answers, negative 2 plus 2 radical 3, and then my other answer is negative 2 minus 2 radical 3. Okay? Now, sometimes when you do this, x minus 4 squared equals negative 9. Okay? So when I square root both sides here, okay, the square root cancels the square. I have x minus 4. When I square root here, all right, this is negative. Well, anytime I have a negative, that sends an I out of the radical, and the square root of 9 would be 3. So this is 3i. But again, it's always plus or minus. Anytime you square root both sides, plus or minus. All right, so I add 4 to both sides. This goes away, and I got x equals, I put the 4 first, plus or minus 3i. And again, there's nothing I can do there, so I'm done. Okay, then one more. Sometimes you have one like this, x plus 7 squared equals negative 24. Negative 20. Negative 20. Okay, so I square root both sides as before. The square root cancels the square. I got x plus 7. When I square root here, the negative comes out, sends an I out. But when I break down 20, it's not a perfect square. So I break it down like before. I got a pair of 2's, which that sends a 2 out. And this 5 is stuck. All right, so this is going to be plus or minus. I've got this I here, so the I goes between the 2 and the radical 5. Okay? Oh, that's not my answer. I almost got ahead of myself. Then I got a minus 7 to make this go away. And then x equals the negative 7's first, plus or minus 2i radical 5. And there you go. There's my answer. All right. So I think that's it here. That's the square root property. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Have a great day.